Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to dive right into the hidden, high-stakes science of exactly what happens the moment your home floods. Imagine that moment, right? You step off the bottom stair in the morning, and instead of solid hardwood, your foot just sinks into a squishy, completely saturated carpet. Now, we all know that water in the living room equals a really bad day. But what you might not realize is that the true damage isn't just about what's wet right now. It's actually about this massive, microscopic, chemical, and structural chain reaction that kicks off the very second water touches your floorboards.
And listen, the clock starts ticking instantly. You only have a 24 to 48-hour window after a flood before you are facing a massive secondary disaster, which is rapid mold growth. That time frame isn't just a suggestion, it's a hard biological fact. If that moisture isn't aggressively addressed within this specific, really tight window, you aren't just dealing with a water problem anymore. You're dealing with a rapidly spreading microbial biohazard that absolutely attacks your property value and, worse, your respiratory health. Literally every single hour counts here, and waiting even one extra day can completely change the entire trajectory of the disaster.
To really understand how this happens, let's look at our case study, Patient 0, Sacramento.
Sacramento is literally a masterclass in compounding risk factors. First, it sits right at the confluence of two major rivers, so flooding is just a constant winter threat. On top of that, the whole region is built on this incredibly dense clay soil. That clay stubbornly refuses to absorb surface water, which ends up pushing it right back toward foundations and up into crawl spaces. Add in those brutal 100-degree summer days that cause ground materials and pipes to violently expand and contract, plus thousands of pre-1980s homes loaded with aging galvanized plumbing, well, you've got a perfect storm. The geography and the infrastructure are just constantly working against each other.
Now this perfectly illustrates why DIY cleanup usually fails. You might grab a shop vac and a mop to tackle a visible puddle in the kitchen, and once the tile looks dry, you think, okay, solved it. But water is incredibly stealthy. The real danger is the hidden moisture secretly wicking up into porous drywall and sinking deep into the structural framing of your subfloors in just a matter of hours. It travels behind baseboards, under cabinets, inside wall cavities. And the scary part is you simply cannot fix what you cannot see, which leaves a hidden time bomb right behind the paint.
So how do the pros combat this? They deploy a really strict three-phase process. Step 1 isn't just throwing down some towels, it's emergency extraction, using heavy-duty truck-mounted pumps to aggressively fight the spread and pull out standing water immediately. Step 2 is structural drying, where they systematically track down and evaporate all that hidden moisture we just talked about. And finally, Step 3 is the complete restoration, where they only rebuild the space after the environment is scientifically proven to be dry. If you skip a step or rush a step, the entire recovery collapses from the inside out.
Which brings us to Phase 2. Let's dig into the actual science of structural drying.
I absolutely love this concept. It's called psychrometry, and it's how technicians measure temperature and humidity to know exactly how much moisture the air can hold, which lets them dry your home efficiently. Honestly, it sounds like something straight out of a university physics lab, and well, it basically is. Experts are in there measuring the relative humidity, the specific humidity, and the dew point of your rooms. Because if they don't know the exact gas-vapor mixture of the air inside your house, they won't know if their dehumidifiers are actually pulling moisture out of the wet drywall, or just blowing wet air around a wet room. It is pure applied science brought right into your living room to save your walls.
And this exact science is why technicians often have to ruthlessly rip out your drywall. See, non-porous items like a glass coffee table or a metal light fixture, they naturally resist damage and dry incredibly fast. But porous materials, things like insulation, carpet padding, and drywall, they act like giant thirsty sponges. They absorb water so aggressively that attempting to completely dry them is often just wildly impractical. Sometimes, the most scientific and effective thing a technician can do is realize the material is simply too porous to be saved and surgically remove it before it infects the rest of the healthy framing.
But it's not just about how wet the water is. Let's look at the contamination threat. The category of water you're dealing with completely dictates the emergency response because it's about what microscopic threats are hiding in that flood. Category 1 is clean water, like from a freshly burst supply line. It's destructive for sure, but it's sterile. Category 2 is gray water. Think of the soapy, slightly dirty discharge from a washing machine. It has chemicals and mild contaminants. But Category 3, that is black water. We're talking raw sewage or ground flood water carrying heavy bacteria, pesticides, and pathogens. If you misidentify the water category, you might accidentally leave deadly biohazards behind, because Category 3 requires extensive physical disposal and heavy-duty antimicrobial treatments.
And all of this happens on a very strict timeline.
The ticking clock of a water emergency dictates absolutely everything. While aggressive extraction happens in hour 1, and the fight against mold kicks in by hour 24, you simply cannot dry out a home's framing in a single afternoon. It actually takes 3 to 7 solid days of scientific monitoring and continuous commercial dehumidification just to get the structural moisture levels back to normal. Only after that grueling week is up can the weeks-long physical reconstruction safely begin.
Now, you can't just press your hand against a piece of drywall, shrug, and say, yeah, feels dry to me, right? To verify that those critical 3 to 7 days actually worked, professionals use thermal imaging cameras to literally see temperature variations, revealing the moisture hiding completely invisibly behind a fresh coat of paint. They use calibrated moisture meters with long probes to pull quantitative, hard data from deep inside your baseboards. Then they combine these readings with commercial dehumidifiers and high-velocity air movers to aggressively manipulate the environment until the meters confirm the psychrometric job is completely 100% done.
So, we've seen the science, but let's talk about the financial reality.
The financial impact here is steep. $3,000 to $7,000 is the average water damage insurance claim in California alone. That number proves exactly why fast mitigation is so essential. A simple, clean toilet overflow might run you on the lower end of that. But if you're dealing with a major pipe burst that requires pulling up custom hardwood floors or a Category 3 sewage backup demanding specialized biohazard removal, you can easily blast right past that higher number. Every single hour you wait to mitigate the water, the cost exponentially multiplies as that secondary damage takes hold.
And this is exactly why you absolutely cannot ignore a slow leak. Listen to this. If your water heater catastrophically ruptures while you're asleep, you're generally covered by insurance because it was a sudden, unavoidable accident. But if you have a slow drip under your bathroom sink that you just ignored for 6 months until the subfloor completely rotted out, the insurance company will legally define that as neglected maintenance, and you might be footing that entire massive bill all by yourself. Fast action and incredibly thorough documentation of the sudden loss are absolutely non-negotiable if you want to be protected.
So, after learning how incredibly fast water moves, how deeply it hides, and the complex science required to actually remove it, you kind of have to ask yourself what hidden vulnerabilities are ticking away inside your own walls right now. Think about the age of your plumbing, the drainage grating around your foundation, and those slow, annoying leaks you might have been pushing off. Water is relentless and it's patient, but now you understand the hidden science of how to fight back. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and seriously, I highly recommend you go check those pipes under your sink today.